We are in Convo with John Derringer. Derringer in the mornings on legendary Q107 and the daily Derringer podcast. JD, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Norman, just looking forward to Thursday night.
Yeah. Your feeling is our feeling, for sure. So how do you feel about what's coming up?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. So I had to kind of take the last couple of years, not so much the Washington series, but the last year's Boston series. We have three daughters, and they're kind of sort of into hockey, not a ton. The oldest one is. And I had to have a little family meeting this weekend and say, kids, you know how your father gets during the playoffs.
Yep.
There's 82 games during the regular season, and we can have a little chat during a game. We can, if I need to be taken away from the TV, no problem. But you know that Dr. Jekyll is about to become Mr. Hyde. And, okay, so, and I'll throw this question at you because I was thinking about this on the drive to work this morning. I actually had to ask myself, do I really, truly enjoy playoff games involving the Leafs? And I don't know the answer.
It's easier to watch, John, teams that you are not emotionally invested in than watching and lamenting and with bated breath, anticipating terrible things with the team that you grew up loving and idolizing and feeling so frightened for. It's unbelievable. But you know what, though? We waited so long over this last little while for an opportunity to get back into that misery, and we're about to get back into it. And then who knows? Maybe the misery will result in total elation. We're in conversation with John Derringer, the legend from Q107. You remember the good times, and then all those bad times, those Leafs teams of the 80s, and then just how terrible the Leafs were in the early 2010. It just seemed like it went on forever. Now we're in these times, and it's funny, for some fans, it's still not good enough. Do you think we should be complaining about anything?
Well, I guess, if our biggest complaint or one of the biggest complaints this year was the quality of our backup goaltending, well, then needless to say, some progress has been made. I guess I would probably default to the same thing that I don't know if a majority, certainly a plurality of fans does, and that's the defense.
Yeah.
Just as a whole, I mean, just you watch Morgan Rielly on any night and go, man, would you have to be exceptional to be a better defenseman in the NHL than this guy, especially with the puck. And we know that there's another aspect to defenseman, which is defending. But day in, day out, no, you're right. We've been through so much grief. I guess it would be kind of like going through 10 or 12 really horrible relationships and realizing that you've got a poor taste in the opposite sex, and then you find somebody who is pretty close to perfect for you, and you start pointing out their fault.
I think we're at that point right now. Our demographic on the Leafs Convo does skew younger, so a lot of our listeners haven't gotten to the 10th and 12th relationship yet, John, so let's not scare the crap out of them just yet. I know we have a lot of really intense and insane moments yet to come over the next couple of weeks. Did you catch Bob Cole's last call, that Leafs-Habs game?
Oh, sure did. We know he's not the Bob Cole of 1993, right?
No.
We all get that, and that would defy everything about life in one's 80s if he was the same Bob Cole. I honestly did not want that game to end on Saturday night. I just wanted to hear him go on and on and on. And one of the things beyond the game itself is it brought back so many of those calls. You can see them on YouTube if you want, but there was something about everybody sharing in the some of the calls from the 70s. There's certainly the calls. Yeah. You notice there weren't many from the 80s with the Leafs.
Builder Lego to Dan Daou. Oh, yeah. Off the post.
There was the Oilers with there's a new bunch. That was a great one. And then the 93. I can't imagine that with the way the world is today, with the fractured kind of nature of the way we consume sports, that there will ever be another Bob Cole. The guy was the best.
We can argue how great Bob Cole was or is on social media, and you're not going to come up with a consensus. There are Habs fans, John, who look at Danny Gallivan as, the icon of broadcasting because he was the guy for Montreal Canadiens broadcasts and, of course, calling all of those championships. And they'll look at a Bob Cole and say, well, he was partial or favorable to the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's hard to go to Twitter and think, well, everybody's going to be, all melancholy in this moment, because there are a lot of people that just don't believe. They don't believe in him the same way we do. And also they look at his elderly nature and will say, well, he's past his prime. The testament, though, for just how respected this guy is, never mind what we have to say, look at the players in the games that he is calling beforehand, wanting to see him and get an autograph or get a picture with him. And then all the testimonials before Hockey Night in Canada. That tells the real story about Mr. Bob Cole.
Yeah, and you're right. It was a great testament to the respect that he has within his chosen craft. No doubt about it. I thought the story about Connor McDavid, Connor McDavid sounded as if he was excited to meet Bob Cole as he had been to meet anybody in his professional career, and and that's one of the things, and you and I. Discovered each other on Twitter as so many Leaf fans and followers have, and there's something. First of all, I think there's this really, really awesome Leafs community on Twitter, and I kind of go out of my way not to follow the real drays, the really irritating, find a fault in everything kind of Leaf fan. So, and there's this terrific community of people who, none of us, I think, see the world or the organization through really rose-colored glasses. But I think, it's a bunch of people, probably in the thousands, who want the team to do well. I understand it's still a work in progress. But one of the great things about that is that age doesn't matter. Some are older than you, some are younger than you, some, I think, understand that a 25 or maybe even a 30-year-old Leaf fan doesn't have that same history of heartbreak that somebody who's 65. And I don't have memories of the last Stanley Cup, but there are people who do. And I think that's got to be an even bigger dagger through the heart, remembering that.
I can't wait for that next moment, John. And does it come this spring? Who knows? I look at it like the Leafs haven't played to the level that I thought they should have. But who am I? And the thing is, it's a matter of getting into the playoffs and giving yourself a chance. John, I mean, we've seen playoff heroics unfold literally every single year, and some of the things you expect don't come to fruition. Things you never in your wildest dreams imagine all of a sudden are right there at the fore, and they sometimes become the story. What's the sense from your listeners on Q107? Do you find that there's a hype generated right now, or do you think, is there a little trepidation, or is there a little bit of nervousness knowing that it's Mount Boston that the Leafs are going to have to scale? And maybe once they start doing that, and if we sense that they're going to reach the peak and overcome it, then we might start getting a little bit more excited.
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. As a matter of fact, I would kind of say, because last year, 2013, was becoming something of a memory, not so distant, but a memory nevertheless. Last year is still fresh for all of us, and Boston is Goliath. And we are little David. And I think that's the position the team has put itself in. But I also think that if the Leafs are to go deep, I think it would be almost incumbent upon them to do it by going through Boston, whether it be the way that it has been this year and last year in the first round or in the second round. But that's kind of a classic sports tale. You've got to get that monkey off your back. Washington had to do it with Pittsburgh. As soon as they beat Pittsburgh, you go, okay, this team's really a legitimate team to win the next 2 rounds, which they ended up doing.
Mike in Buffalo wants to say hi, and Mike in Buffalo, it's like 6 degrees of separation. You and I are doing this. You and Mike follow each other on social media. You're at Q107. The man, the myth, the magic is a voice that I'll always associate with Q107, the one and only Andy Frost. Come on, bro.
Oh.
I'm getting goosebumps talking about that guy right now. Leafs talk after the games. You've got Leonard Skinner playing. He's going through the scores. Mike in Buffalo, the last guy to do the, throw in his 2 cents at the end of the night. Andy Frost, man, that's a voice that I'll always associate with the Maple Leafs. And I don't care who's calling the games. I'm always going to think of that even when they go forward and maybe win a Stanley Cup here.
Yeah, Leafs talk was kind of Twitter before there was Twitter, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I called Mike Augello the Dart guy before Dart guy, and he almost hung up on me. We almost lost the podcast over that one.
Well, you know what? Andy is one of my best friends, has been for well over 30 years now. And I miss Andy being part of the Leafs organization, whether it be at the games, on the radio. He was such a great ambassador for Q107. But I will say, we've been very closely following his son Morgan's career. Now, the Sioux is into the second round. They're playing Saginaw in the OHL playoffs. Mm-hmm. He was top 3 in OHL scoring this year. He's going to be a legitimate NHL player. But most importantly, he's a kid who has been raised right.
Yeah.
And he is going to be a very, very solid hockey player. And I know that as Andy, transitioned out of that part of his hockey life, he will have a very, very rich experience with such a great young man as Morgan in the Philadelphia Flyers organization.
So well put. John Derringer, what an honor for me to be able to speak with you. I'm a product of radio. I'm a student of Canadian Toronto radio. And my friend, I'm a huge fan. Thank you very much for spending time with us.
It is truly my pleasure. Thank you, Norman. Great talking to you. And Thursday night.
Go Leafs, go. Hang in there, my friend. Who knows? The best maybe yet to come. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.